Now I'm thrilled to introduce today's speaker, Kirk French. Kirk is an associate teaching professor of anthropology here at Penn State and the director and executive producer of the film Land and Water Revisited. He has spent over 20 years conducting archaeological research in Mesoamerica that deals with the interplay between humans and their environment, specifically as it relates to water. His passion for this particular project stems largely from his interest in environmental change. One of the things that he's trying to accomplish with this film is to accurately document the changes and tell the personal stories from those who have been directly affected by environmental change. Kirk received his Ph.D. in anthropology from Penn State in 2009. Also of note, this is a very big weekend for Kirk, as he has been selected for the university court for homecoming. So you'll see him on the field today as well. So please help me welcome today's Huddle expert, Kirk French.
Is this on? Okay. Thank you, Paul. Thanks a lot. All right, thank you for coming today on a cold, chilly day, but this feels like football season though, right? Finally. I'm glad this didn't happen last Tuesday when it was 87 degrees. So thanks a lot for coming, and thanks for the Alumni Association for inviting me to do this. This is something that, like Paul said, I'm an archaeologist, not a filmmaker, but I'm making a film. So I have some help, and I'll talk about those folks that are doing that. So let me get into this, kind of tell you a little background of, so learning from the past, the lens of the present, trying to really understand what was going on in the past, trying to apply those personal stories of the people who have lived through these drastic changes, and we're all living through drastic changes, but in some places it's a little more amplified than others. And the place that I'm going to talk about is one of those. But to really back up here and how this began, I'll start with talking about William Sanders. So William Sanders grew up in Patchogue, Long Island, and very, very poor family. He told stories of his dad making him go chase the coal trucks to get little pieces of coal that fell off so they could warm their home. But he went to World War II, was the first generation to have with the GI Bill, went to Harvard. He told me, he was on my committee actually before he passed away in 2008. And he told me once, he said, "Hey, how much do you pay to go to school here?" He was a very gruff individual. What's the tuition like at Penn State? And I told him something that was astronomical. And he said, "Do you know how much I paid at Harvard?" I said, "No." He said, $300 a semester. So anyway, I don't really know why I'm going into that, except a little bit about him and the way he was. But he served in World War II, went to Harvard, came here, became a very decorated National Academy of Sciences, Evan Pugh professor, very well decorated archaeologist, one of the leaders in Mesoamerican archaeology. And one of the reasons actually I came to Penn State, I had met him in Mexico years ago, and when I was an undergrad working down there, and so I came up here to Penn State. Here he is actually with President Jordan getting his Evan Pugh in 1985. Now, so Sanders is an archaeologist. He's not a filmmaker. But his dissertation from Harvard was called Tierra y Agua, so land and water, an ecological study of the Teotihuacan Valley. So what he did while he was down there working in that area doing archaeological work, he was also conducting interviews with people about land use change and how they're farming and all of this. So he decided, he got his PhD in 1957, but then he went to, I think, University of Mississippi or Mississippi State for a couple of years, got hired here in 1959. And back then the program was the Department of Anthropology and Sociology. And he had a graduate student that knew a little bit about film. And you can imagine what that was like, that very few people in those days would know anything about film. Now everybody thinks they know something about film because everyone's filming things all the time, even though they don't know anything about film. But we still record things all the time, right, with our phones. So this kid, this graduate student, undergrad at the time, knew about film. And he took him down on an archaeological project to Teotihuacan, and he said, "Hey, bring your Bolex." He got a little grant, National Science Foundation, for some film, and they went down there and they made a documentary based on his dissertation. And it was something, so it's called Land and Water. And it was something that was just to be used in classes. And Sanders even made it 28 minutes so that for a 50-minute class, you would still have a good 25 minutes left over, or a little bit less, to have discussion afterwards. It's a really short film, and I'll be totally honest, it's kind of boring. It's just, there was no sound, so it's just Sanders narrating it. But we used it in class here as a grad student. We used it in class all the time because it just captured a way of life that is gone today. The farming practices that were going on then were much more like they were in the 16th and 17th century. But now there's been the commercialization of farms, and Mexico City has exploded in population, and it's totally changed. So he filmed this in July and August of 1961. So Teotihuacan, I'm saying this name, Teotihuacan, might sound familiar because of the ancient ruins of Teotihuacan. From about 50 BC to about 500 AD, really the first great, what we maybe call a civilization, even though I don't like using that word too much, but that kind of complex society really is the earliest one in all of the New World on this scale, a population of 100,000 people. But that's not what Land and Water is about. It's not about this. They get 6 million visitors a year at Teotihuacan. But I am talking about this same valley. But the reason Bill was able to make this film was because of this guy, William Mather. So William Mather III was his graduate student that went down with him to film. And just to tie this in with another backstory, Mather's father was the chair of the anthropology and sociology department at the time. And he grew up as a little academic kid, a townie, right, in State College. And his dad was really good friends with a guy named Ray Carpenter. Carpenter Building. It's right next door. It's my building. Well, I mean, I share it with other people too, but still. It's named after Ray Carpenter. Now, Ray Carpenter was one of the earliest people to start using film to study non-human primates, to film them in the wild, watch the films later, and try to understand their behaviors. It was monumental. It was pioneering at the time in the 1940s. Well, Bill loved this idea. Bill Mather loved this idea of film, and he would star in these little, he called them public service announcements, like how to cross the street safely. And he learned how to do film. But then he really honed his craft doing this. And I know a lot of you have seen this photograph before because it blows my mind. I love this. There's that crazy water tower that's right next door. There's the little edge of the Nittany Lion Inn right there. There's the big parking deck that you tried to park in today, maybe. And Carpenter Building is right here. This is Beaver Field, right? So Mather got a job filming the football games. They were all day games, like they're becoming again. But because the field didn't have lights, right? And so then he would drive all the way to Pittsburgh right after the game was over to develop it and edit it as quickly as he could so that Penn State football game so they could have highlights of the 6 o'clock news in Pittsburgh. And he would do that right after the game. So as today would happen, it would be a noon game, it would end at 3, he would drive as fast as he could to get over there, develop it. This is quick, fast editing, right? And he learned his craft filming the Penn State football games. So I just had to throw that in there, one, because it's true, and two, it's a football weekend, and this is called Huddle with the faculty, so I figured that would work really well. Now, I became kind of obsessed with this concept of revisiting this film because I went down to Teotihuacan about in 2000, it was probably 2006, I think, and I had never been there. I'd just seen the film. Now, I knew because it's 35, 40 miles outside of Mexico City that it would be very different, but my only visual of Teotihuacan Valley was from the 1961 film, and I was floored with the changes. Because then I thought, wouldn't it be cool if you could just do some juxtaposition of the same shots? Because what's really great about this is there's some long, slow pans that I'll show in a moment, and I thought this would be really great. So, and I remember going up, Bill Sanders passed away in 2008, and about 2007, I said something to him about this. I said, hey, Dr. Sanders, wouldn't it be cool, and I was a graduate student at the time, wouldn't it be cool if we remade Land and Water and went back and revisited? He's like, no one would care about that. You know, he just kind of this gruff kind of thing. But, so I was like, okay, well, he doesn't care. And so, but then he passed away the next year, and this thing was always in my head. And I told other people about it, and there was some support of well, that seems like a pretty good idea, and good job, Kirk, that was really nice. And so I thought, maybe I'll do this. But again, I'm an archaeologist, I'm not a filmmaker. So I started gathering footage. The first thing I did was I reached out to Mather. He was in a assisted living home down in D.C., and he got his master's degree in archaeology and worked for the Department of Weights and Measures the rest of his life. He never did anything with film. He never did anything with archaeology. But he was down there, and he had all the outtakes, all of them in his filing cabinet. So he gives them to me, or to the department. So I start doing that. I start digitizing the film. It's all in 16 millimeters, so I start digitizing it. And actually, that is the Bolex that filmed Land and Water. He still had it. And he said the last time he used it was in 1962 when he was down, or 1961 when he was down there filming. I don't know if that's true or not, but I like the story. But anyway, we started connecting, and here's another key part, and a very important element of being an archaeologist or any sort of science, any sort of researcher, is note-taking. You got to take detailed notes because you're only doing this once, right? You can't redo this stuff. These are his notes. Now you can't really read it because of the scan and whatnot, but it's so detailed. These are actually feet on foot 25 of the film, foot 32, foot 37, foot 43, and he's describing exactly what's going on, where he's located, what direction he's looking, and even so detailed as cilantro equals coriander, because no one called coriander cilantro in those days, and he was like, what's this cilantro everybody's talking about? Oh, it's coriander. All sorts of little details like that. But then I had this blueprint of where to go to remake this film. So here's one of these long, slow pans. Probably lasts about 10 seconds or so. But this was some of the things that really grabbed me about this film. Now you can see this was the first digitization I did of the film. It's pretty grainy. You can't really see a whole lot of detail. But I'll tell you what, that's not what it looks like today. You know, there are fields still, but not like this. And it were those shots that I thought, with those notes, I can go and I'm thinking about this, again, not making some documentary that everyone's going to like. It was, again, how do you make a film that we can use in class? You know, how can I use it in Intro to Archaeology, or how can I use it in an environmental archaeology class? That type of thing. Actually, what I was thinking had nothing to do with the people of the Teotihuacan Valley. I just wanted to capture some of these same shots again. So in 2010, I got a little bit of money from the department to go down just for a scouting trip. Like, can I find these locations? Is it so built up that you can't even stand in the same places anymore? Because if that was the case, it'd kind of be a moot point, right? So there I am on top of Cerro Gordo. It's the big mountain that overlooks Teotihuacan. You can kind of see, maybe that's the Temple of the Sun that you saw earlier that's way down there. And Mexico City's over here where all the kind of smog and stuff is. But you can see all this development that's in the area. And these were some of the kind of shots that I wanted to do. You know, I was going back to these places of this hacienda called Rancho Huixcaloco, then and now. A brewery. So I teach a class called the Anthropology of Alcohol, or Booze and Culture. It's super popular at Penn State because Penn State students love anthropology. They're so crazy about anthropology, they can't get enough. So this is a brewery that Bill filmed quite a bit of, probably because Bill also liked pulque a lot. But anyway, so this is what it looked like then, this is what it looks like now. So this is kind of the extent to what I was thinking, of like, capture some of these shots and make some film about it, you know? But again, not a big picture film, just something to use here at Penn State. Well, then that grainy thing that I showed you, the long, slow pan, with funding that I've been getting over the last several years, and this project really taking on a whole other, becoming all-consuming, actually. You know, what happened is I got sidetracked with, not sidetracked, but I was an archaeologist with projects in other parts of Mexico with grad students doing work and all this kind of stuff. The film was this backseat thing, right? But it became more and more forefront, and now it seems like it's all I do. But we started getting funding, and this thing's really started taking off, and the digitization you saw versus the remastering, check the difference out.
The third activity of the hacienda is the production of pulque. The tlachiqueros, or maguey cultivators, are acasillados, or permanent residents. Twice a day, they go out to the maguey fields and extract the agua miel. They are also responsible for the planting and castration of the plants. The agua miel is brought in by burro late in the morning and late in the afternoon, and taken to the Tinakal, or brewery.
So you get the point of the difference in just cleaning it up. It's quite expensive to do that, but worth it, right? If you're gonna, so we've actually started making a real film about this, like a real 56-minute documentary, because as time went on, I started getting more interest with people that actually know what they're doing in regards to making a film, and them getting excited about it. And then the money always helps too. If you get funding, then you can actually start doing stuff with it instead of just talking about it. So the first real trip down where this thing really kicked into high gear was in 2018. We went down for about 6 weeks, was it? Six or 8 weeks. But the first thing we did is before we left, this film was only in English, right? And it had never been seen really by anybody else other than other anthropology departments throughout the country a little bit. But it sure hadn't been seen by the people of Mexico because, one, it was in English. You heard Bill Sanders narrating it there. So, you know, I thought, well, can't we, you know, we'll strip him out of it, get a Spanish narrator, have everything translated. So we went down and we did public viewings in little institutions, museums, auditoriums, also, and put these posters up everywhere with pictures of people that were actually in the film. And this is something that I had not given a whole lot of thought of about maybe how powerful it might be until I started making the posters and kind of putting this together. All I know is that if I walked into my hometown in Dayton, Texas, you've never heard of it, it's okay. If I walked into that town and there was a poster up and there was a picture of my great-grandfather or something, or my grandfather, and he was in some documentary about my town that I didn't even know existed, that doesn't exist for almost probably no one in here, that there's a film about the little town that you grew up in, right? Unless it's New York City or something, then I'm sure there's a documentary about it. But the point is, this doesn't happen, right? We don't have a great film about it that's a time capsule of where we grew up. And so putting this up, people started seeing things that looked familiar, and they showed up. And then what ended up happening is not only did people want to talk to us afterwards to share their stories, they're seeing relatives. They're actually seeing relatives of people they've never even seen a photo of, but they're seeing video of. It was extremely powerful, and something that I really didn't expect. Here's one of the individuals that now she's actually become an associate producer of this film because of the amount of work that her and her husband Alonzo have put into this project. She's the one, and she'll tell the story here, but she saw her grandfather. She had never even met him. She had never seen a photograph because they were poor. They didn't have a camera. There was no photograph of him. And she saw him work in the field as a farmer. And I get emotional. Sorry. I'll play this. I'll shut up.
Estoy sorprendida en ese momento por lo que me acaba de suceder. No me lo esperaba. Yo vine por una invitación de una amiga que sabe que me gusta mucho los temas de antropología. Jamás pensé encontrarme a una persona de mi familia, a una persona tan importante en mi vida, que yo no conocía hasta el día de hoy. Es mi bisabuelo, su nombre, Aniceto Martínez. Él murió en 1981. Yo lo recuerdo porque vi la fecha escrita en su tumba, pero no lo conocía a él. Nunca había visto una fotografía ni más información sobre su persona. Solo sabía que él tomaba mucho pulque, se dedicaba al campo y vivía en San Francisco Mazapa, pero nada más. Cuando veo el documental, estaba junto con mi esposo y en voz baja le dije, es mi bisabuelo. Y él me dijo, estás equivocada, ¿cómo puede ser tu bisabuelo? Y yo le respondí, solo hay una persona en ese pueblo que se llama Aniceto Martínez. No creo que haya dos personas. Entonces, él es mi bisabuelo.
Now, since that has happened, I mean, of course, after she saw this, she goes and gets her entire extended family, right? I mean, Aniseto's brother and sister are still alive, and they're in their, one's 92, one's 88. They're seeing because their mother is also in the film. She's bringing pulque and tortillas and frijoles to them in the field. I mean, they're seeing their family operate, and they've never seen it before. So it really was, oh, and the detailed notes I should also just go back to with Mather for a moment. Those two oxen that you saw pulling the plow, their names are Tigre and Lobo. So I know their names too. It was crazy. Oh, was that the same? Okay, sorry. So we also did a lot of interviews. People really came out of the woodwork for this. They wanted to talk and tell their stories. So we conducted a lot of interviews with just people some that are still doing some farming, some that have given up on farming. There's another family that I don't have footage of. I mean, I do, but I'm not going to show the clip. But another family that came out that their father was in it, and they're telling their entire story. So we really do. So what turned out to be a whole documentary that was going to be super boring, juxtapositions to show to students, has become a story that's being told by the people of the Teotihuacan Valley. It's not being told by this gringo. It's being told by them. You know, they're the ones that are telling this story. And I had also been worried about some, as it started happening, that it might come off as exploitative in some way. That like, here I am coming down, I'm gonna, white man's gonna come down and make a cool video about y'all and then, say how sad it all is and how it wasn't like, because of course that's not what I'm doing, but it wasn't like that at all. It was open arms the entire time because it was reciprocal. I'm sharing something that they want to see, and they're giving me something that I want to document, and it's very back and forth, and we all feel like we're getting something out of it, which is the best scenario of any relationship, macro or micro, right? Where you feel like everybody's winning. Now, we also did my juxtaposition shots too. So with those detailed notes, we were able to set up and actually get exact shots that we're using. A lot of B-roll that will be used between interviews to show these changes. But that part of it has really taken a back seat to the project. Now, like I keep saying, I also didn't mention just how naive I was when I went down there in 2010. I just thought like making a movie was probably not, making a film wouldn't be that hard. Get a camera, film it, I got great notes. I'm smart, I can do this. I have no idea what I'm doing, right? It was a mess, like not a total mess, I shouldn't paint it that bad, but I was like, that was another reason it took a back seat. I was like, I need a team. I need some people that know what they're doing. And so I'm going to introduce you to the crew real quickly, and they're the ones driving this. Other than the people of the valley, these are the ones that are making this happen. So the first one here is Elijah Hermit. Now he was an undergraduate student of mine, then became a grad student, and he knows his way around a camera, and we get along really well, and now he's since graduated and he's moved on, but we're still working together on this project. But here's a little bit of Elijah. It's about a minute long, talking about why he wanted to get involved in this film.
Hey, I'm Elijah Hermit, and I'm the director of photography and the editor for Land and Water Revisited. And I was brought onto this project really just as an extension of my college career. I've been working with Kirk French for over 6 years now on various archaeological projects as well as film projects. During that time, I learned that the way that you conduct a project doesn't come down to the equipment that you have. It comes down to the stories that you have to tell. So really what Land and Water means to me is a chance to work with a community to help them tell their own story. It's not about us going in there and exploiting a situation, but really this is something that needs to happen right now. This is, for all intents and purposes, a salvage project. Things are disappearing, things are changing fast, as it is in any other area of the world. After working with and getting to know the people of the Teotihuacan Valley, I really see how much this means to them to be able to tell their story. And my motivation for this project is really to be able to make something that they are proud of as much as I am proud of.
So even though Elijah is young and new to this, in some regards, he's been working with me on some other small film projects as well, but still young, right? And not all that experienced in the world of like making especially a full documentary. The other person that's been key to this project is Neil Hutchison. Now, he's the real deal in every way. He has 2 Emmys. He has produced over 16 full-length documentaries, and we became friends through a whole other story that I don't even need to get into, but well, it has to do with moonshine production, and he did a film. How many people know who Popcorn Sutton is? The moonshiner. All right. He did the film about Popcorn Sutton called The Last One, and because of my anthropology of alcohol stuff, we had something in common. And anyway, I told him about this film, and he said, I want to be a part of it, which was great because he's bringing these years, these decades of experience to the project. And then Elijah is getting this mentorship angle from him that it's phenomenal. So Neil's he's at North Carolina State University. So here's another minute about Neil talking about this.
Hi, I'm Neil Hutchison, and I'm a documentary filmmaker. I was brought on to Land and Water Revisited in a supporting role to help Kirk and Elijah produce the film. But once I got down to Teotihuacan and we were showing the film to the people there, the original film made in 1961, and they also began to help us and become engaged with the work that we're doing now to remake this film now, I really began to see firsthand how important this film is to the people of the Valley and what it meant to them, and how quickly things are changing there. And I saw the urgency of making this film happen right now. And what an incredible opportunity this is to show what environmental changes are happening all over the world with this particular case example where we have a film from 1961 and we can remake it, and you look at those changes and you talk to the people who are experiencing them in real time, and it's an incredibly compelling story. And it made me want to do anything in my power that I could to make this film happen and to make it a success.
Yeah, he has been a lifesaver, as has Elijah. But so this is going to seem out of nowhere. But believe me, I'll get to it. I'm going to show a couple of photos here. I know this seems like, what is he doing? He's like, this is the wrong PowerPoint. Okay, 324th victory, right? Great photo. Some of you might recognize some of these photos. 320, what is it? I think this is the one that, the record-breaking one, the 300th one. Maybe I have it wrong. Okay. 300 was before October 28th. Okay, all right. So it's 324 then, I think. I'm an archaeologist, not a sports historian. I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong about that. Great play, right? How many people were there at that game when Marcus Allen blocked that shot, right? So these photos might look familiar, right? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. If you recognize any of these specific photos, this is after that game. Sandy Barber and Franklin. Wow, who's this guy? Does anybody know who took these photos? It's Joe Hermit. Yeah. Yeah, so it turns out Elijah's dad is Joe Hermit. So what's weird about this is while Elijah was an undergrad, mainly doing archaeology stuff with me, like going down to Mexico and excavating at some Maya ruins and doing all sorts of stuff. He's a great student. He was doing all this other stuff on the side for his dad because he grew up around a camera. And what he would do is he would film these games for Penn Live and then stay up till like 1 or 2 in the morning editing them as fast as he could, throwing them on Penn Live. And that's how he learned how to film, just like Mather. It's a crazy parallel. And when I realized this, and he didn't even know it, because when we realized this, actually Elijah was with me when we went down to interview Mather down in DC, and Mather's telling this story about editing at the games and filming and doing all this stuff real quickly, and Elijah's like, God, that's what I did. And so here Mather is helping out this professor of his that knows nothing about film, and Elijah's helping this professor of his who knows nothing about film, and they both got their chops filming Penn State football. So pretty cool parallel. And then there's Elijah's first foray into filming. He was in high school, and his dad paid him to come up, and he filmed one of the press conferences of Joe Pa. And there he is at like, what did we figure out? 15, 14, 15 year child labor? What? I'm sorry. Okay, never mind. Patriot News breaks. So anyway, it's just a really cool parallel story that I wanted to share with you. Now, the next thing I want to show you is two longer clips. I have plenty of time. One's about 4.5 or 5 minutes. The other one's closer to 6. So I want to show this one. Now, this is as close to a preview or trailer that we've put together. Now, we've raised a lot of money for this so far, and we're finished filming, and we're in the editing process. Neil and Elijah were up here last week. We were having Neil lives in North Carolina, Elijah lives in Philly. You can do so much by Skype and texting and all of that kind of stuff, and it's really good to get together every now and then, but it's pricey, right? So we got together and knocked out a lot, and the film's about halfway done, I would say. But we have enough footage that we've been able to put together a trailer to kind of show people, what's been going on. So I hope you enjoy this.
Yo nunca pensé en mi juventud que iba yo a comprar un litro de agua embotellada. La naturaleza totalmente se acabó. Empezó a escasearse los manantiales y se acabó el agua. Se acabó el agua, se acabaron los cultivos.
Yo empecé desde los 8 años más o menos, que a mi papá pues siempre le gustó bastante. Es triste ver, todos estamos dejando al abandono el campo, entonces yo siento que también a lo mejor en un determinado momento no va a haber ni qué comer del campo.
Mucha gente que ya no sabe cómo fue San Juan en su tiempo de manantiales, no conoce esas imágenes. Yo todavía lo viví, pero ahorita ya verlo en un documental, pues sí me emocionó y yo dije, yo voy a ir.
Bill had this lifelong interest in using advanced media in anthropology.
Unlike many archaeologists, he was a person who came from an unprivileged background and who found himself engaged with the traditional agrarian people, and he thought of them as the building blocks.
La arqueología también debe de servir para la comunidad, no solamente para la investigación para unas cuantas personas, ¿no? Nos falta mucho lo que hizo en algún momento, ver esa parte de la población actual, en la que vive actualmente, ¿no? Podemos generar cambios hacia las comunidades, hacia el Valle de Teotihuacán, ¿no? Podemos, yo creo que lograr buenas cosas en conjunto, si es que el arqueólogo decide salir un poco más, ¿no? De su excavación y de su oficina, ¿no? Yo creo que hay que salir un poquito más a campo, como Sanders, ¿no?
Right now, the city of Mexico is just growing and engulfing all kinds of things. And, here you have a documentary of a particular time and place that no longer exists. And that not so long ago, it looked like things had never changed. Yet it is so important to the archaeology of the Teotihuacan Valley.
People come to Teotihuacan and they're looking at the big pyramids and stuff like that. Bill was looking at everything else.
Había 6, 7 ranchos con vacas. Actualmente no hay un solo rancho. Ya no se produce, ya. Actualmente ya están abandonadas las tierras.
Antes veías puras vacas, animales, gente trabajando. No, ya no, ya se acabó. Sí ha habido muchos cambios, pero pues ni modo. Mal o bien tenemos que vivir y comer. Ni modo, de todos modos tenemos que vivir.
Yo creo que lo que sigue ahora es darlo a conocer para empezar a concientizar que ya no tire basura y que volvamos a esa forma de cultivar la tierra sin químicos, que nos congreguemos en comunidad para apoyarnos mutuamente y que con eso se vaya trabajando poco a poco, de la mano. Siempre yo confío en esa cuestión social, que agarrados de la mano y apoyándonos es más fácil.
Lo que se está viviendo en Teotihuacán es lo que se está viviendo en todo el mundo. Teotihuacán, así como fue hace miles de años un ejemplo a seguir por todo lo que representó, pues hoy vuelve a ser lo mismo. Vuelve a ser un ejemplo y un punto de partida para decir hay que cambiar las cosas.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you. So that's kind of, a preview of what we've been doing. And actually, is it going to mess anything if I skip ahead one more and go back?
It shouldn't. Just do it quickly.
Okay. So the other clip I'm going to play, I just kind of realized I had this a little bit out of order. Like I said, we've raised enough money all over Penn State's campus from different departments and different organizations, from the Huck Institute to Rock Ethics to the Penn State Institute of Energy and the Environment, Anthropology Department, Liberal Arts, all over the place. We also did a crowdfunding Kickstarter last year that went really well and raised the last bit of money that we needed. So all is good in regards to that. But then after being down there this last summer, we went down there for one more trip. I had this idea so the premiere, we're doing the premiere in San Juan Teotihuacan. The Spanish version is in San Juan Teotihuacan, because I figured it's about them, it's their film, they should see it first. And so we're doing that on January 4th, and then we're doing the English premiere here at the State Theater on April 3rd. But what I want to do is I want to bring some of those families, the ones that were highly affected by this film, the ones that had relatives that were in it, because they have opened up their hearts and homes in a way that I couldn't even imagine. I want to bring them up here for the premiere, because I want them to see the type of impact that their lives and the things they're going through mean to us and our community here, and that their community matters to us and our community matters to them, and this reciprocal idea. And I want them to come here and see that. And also I want to say they are hyper aware that they're not experiencing this alone. That communities throughout the entire world are experiencing what they're experiencing, and they're very aware of that. They talk about it in their interviews. It's like, we're not unique. What's unique about this story is that we have it captured 60 years ago and we can show this, right? That's the difference. But I want to bring them up, so I'm trying to raise some money to bring them up. So I've just launched yesterday a Let's Grow State, one of the crowdfunding that's run by Penn State, to bring up some of these families for that premiere. So the last clip that I'm going to show is a clip that's on that you can Google Let's Grow State and find the website and find it if you're interested in donating. But the clip I want to show is going to reiterate some of the stuff I've already said today, but with visuals in another way. And I hope that it kind of hits at home of what I'm trying to accomplish. So let me go back to that and then. Hey there, I'm Kirk French. I'm an associate teaching professor at Penn State University. And as an archaeologist, most of my research has always dealt with the interplay between humans and their environment, mainly as it relates to water. Given the almost daily bombardment of news regarding climate change, we are all keenly aware of the enormous role humans have played in altering the environment. But you know, that kind of change, it's incremental, it's slow. So much so, we don't even recognize it day to day. But we've all had that experience, that moment of seeing an old photo of a landscape or a town that we grew up in 50 years ago. Seeing those drastic changes all at once can be quite a shock. Well, the project we're working on is in that vein. In 1961, Penn State University archaeologist William T. Sanders filmed a documentary titled Land and Water, an ecological study of the Teotihuacan Valley of Mexico. The film it captured the daily lives of the people of the valley, the farming techniques, pulque production, and even the washing of clothes at one of the many perennial springs. And even though that area is home to one of the world's most iconic early civilizations, the archaeological site of Teotihuacan with its monumental pyramids, it's never mentioned. Not once. Its complete absence was purposeful, because this was about the community. It was about the hardworking and creative people of the Teotihuacan Valley. Land and Water Revisited aims to provide a rare glimpse of the changes that have taken place in a particular location. And thanks to the detailed notes left behind by the cinematographer and editor of the original film, William G. Mather III, we were able to re-record or revisit many of these identical shots. This juxtaposition has allowed us to essentially measure the changes through film. Oh, and I'm not doing this alone. Our production team runs like a well-oiled machine. My previous student and now partner in crime, Elijah Hermit, is a young but experienced videographer and editor that has been indispensable to me as a crew member over the last 6 years. Several of his recent videos became semi-finalists for the coveted Adobe Award. He has a preternatural eye for catching the right shot at the right time. Neil Hutchison. He has filmed, produced, and edited 16 documentaries over the last 30 years. With 2 Emmys under his belt, he's providing the experience that's vastly improving the quality of this project. We even have music being written and performed by Chris Ratty and Blue Mountain's Carrie Hudson. Then last summer, Diego Hernandez joined the team to assist with interviews. Then there's also our Mexican collaborators, Perla Martinez and Alonso Rodriguez, who have bent over backwards helping us produce this film. And lastly, there's the people of the Teotihuacan Valley. They have been more supportive of this project than I could put into words. Essentially, they're treating us like family. Now, because the original film was 1, in English, and 2, used almost exclusively in anthropology classes, it had never been presented to the people of the valley. So the first thing we did was we had the film's narration translated into Spanish. And secondly, we held several public viewings in different communities through the area. The reaction was powerful and often emotional. But these events, they provided an opportunity to connect with family members of those that were featured in the original film. The families we made contact with, like those of Aniceto Martinez and Andres Reyes, were incredibly gracious with their time and participated in several interviews. Those interviews, along with many other community members, gave us great insight into the changes that have taken place over the last 60 years. We have also conducted interviews with scholars to try to better understand the role humans have played in altering the environment, both past and present. And a look at what researchers are doing today to find answers to these complex questions as they relate to sustainability. Now, with funding from many institutions across the Penn State campus, we have made 3 trips to Mexico, and as of February, I'm happy to report that principal photography is complete. But we have a long and costly 8 months to go before the premiere in San Juan, Teotihuacan. Land and Water Revisited will have both Spanish and English versions, and all proceeds, if any, will go to the William T. Sanders Scholarship that supports graduate and undergraduate research in Mesoamerica. And the last thing I want to say is that Land and Water Revisited is not simply a film about the changes over the last 60 years in the Teotihuacan Valley of Mexico. This film could have been made anywhere. It could have been made in a million different communities throughout the world. The problems caused by unregulated urban growth are being played out in many of our own communities. The end product will be about change, about adaptation, and what we can learn from the people of the Teotihuacan Valley. And that's why we feel that it's important to bring several of the families that have opened up their hearts and homes to share their stories with us directly up to State College for the premiere on April 3rd. We want to share with them the impact that their story has on our Penn State community. And with your support, we can make this happen, because we are. I hope you will consider donating to the Land and Water Revisited project to help us tell this important story. Thanks for your time. All right, thank you. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We really want to make this part happen, bringing these families back. But the film will be finished in the next few months, and I want to thank these folks, also the Alumni Association, but also the funding agencies here and the people that have been involved. But this is also a tiny list. Our credit list is going to be enormous because there's just so many people that have helped make this happen. So anyway, that's pretty much it. Thanks a lot for coming and listening to me today. Anyway, thank you very much. Questions? Oh yeah, questions, absolutely. If you can tell, I like to talk, so it's probably supposed to be done 5 minutes ago.
Any questions?
There's one over there.
Do we have the microphone?
Good morning. Thank you for sharing this incredibly interesting work that I never knew was happening right on our very campus.
Thank you.
My question is with regard to the follow-up after you have the premiere and the culmination of your years of work and recognition of Professor Sanders' work. What are the anticipated actions to follow up and or whether it regards to an anthropology study of some sort with regard to this culture and the people, or a next phase of this project? Have you and your team given thought to that?
A little bit of thought. Thanks for that question. A little bit of thought that we're starting to, and even talking to some of the people there. One idea has been, so several of the people that we've interviewed are teachers. Like one in particular, Alma. Alma is a elementary school teacher. And she loves this original one because it's in Spanish and she can show her kids, even though she says it's kind of boring. Like the kids, they lose attention quickly, right? Because it's just a narration and it's old footage. But she is excited about the new one to show them this juxtaposition because the kids can recognize, well, that's next to the church. That's right where that spring's not there anymore. She hopes that over several years of students that go through her class and other teachers' classes in their school, that maybe it will have some small impact on realizing just how quickly things can change. The high school kids and kids that are 15, 16, 17 years old, they're not going to care as much about that. But she's talking about the 6, 7, and 8, and 9-year-olds, that if you start showing them and introducing this, that maybe there will be some behavioral change. And another educator is Perla, And she feels that way too, of like trying to work with people and use this film to try and, I guess, educate people on at least the changes that have gone on and how we could maybe make slight changes. And so I guess what I'm getting at is what I've talked to some people about is going back every year or so and interviewing some people and talking to them and working with them continually throughout the year of doing some surveys and things like that to just see if anything's changing. You know, have there been any changes? I don't know how you could equate it to this film, but yeah, we are talking about some things like that. And then revisiting it in the sense of making another film, the only thing that's been talked about that is there's a new, if anybody's ever flown into Mexico City, the airport is engulfed within the city, right? It's all the way around it now. They're building a new one on the outskirts of the city, which is just about 5 or 7 miles from Teotihuacan, which a lot of people are upset about because it's near an archaeological site. But then if you have that there, then the subway is going to come all the way out there, and it's going to a whole other level. So people have said, well, yeah, it took 60 years for this much change to happen, but you could do another revisited 15 years from now, and it's going to be a whole other amplified problem that has happened. So we've talked about that, but right now the president has shelved that new airport. But we are thinking about how to do that. But we're also thinking about looking at other films and revisiting them as well. That's kind of more our energy is going, but we can do both. I mean, we can do it all. Yes.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful documentary. And because you're addressing on-the-ground communities who are dealing with water issues, life support, sustaining agricultural issues, you mentioned in the film, and you mentioned in your introduction for the support for bringing the families here whose families were in the original film, coming here, how much what you're addressing in this story of this small community, how much it connects with people and struggles of people all over the world. I hope you've got some international distributors that you're working with for when this film is completed to be able to distribute this film so that it reaches a very broad global community.
So I'll probably need your help for that. Yeah, we haven't, so Neil, that has a lot of experience with making film, we've talked about it a little bit, and he's like, yeah, we probably should start working on some distribution soon. I'm thinking, can't we just finish it first? And he's like, yeah, but when it's finished, we have to have things ready to go. So yeah, we are going to need some help with trying to do that. And we do want it to be, actually some of the money that for this latest crowdfunding will deal with levels of outreach. Part of the money is to bring, most of the money is to bring the families up, but part of the money will be for outreach to go out into other international markets for film festivals and to present it at other places and to try to get distribution. But I don't have it all outlined yet about how that would work with distribution because it's about as foreign to me as international distribution. So.
And one more thing, I teach in the Film, Video, and Media Studies Department at Penn State University, and we have a number of wonderful filmmakers there who know some of the, the festival circuits,
Great.
And distribution, connection possibilities. So
Okay, well, I'm glad we're royalty together on the court. So we're practically related now. So, all right. Thank you very much.
So Kirk will stick around and answer any more questions that you might have.
Oh, and there's merch for sale.
There is merch for sale.
Land and water merch. All the money, of course, goes back to merch.
Absolutely. I see a number of other people wearing homecoming court sashes. Can you all just stand up so we can congratulate you? There you go. So that's the end of today's huddle. Once again, help me in thanking Professor Kirk and all the good work that he is doing here. We hope that those of you who have tuned in have enjoyed today's huddle, and we look forward to seeing you here at a future huddle back here at the Nittany Lion Inn. Thanks for all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are. Thank you.